The sixth episode of Season 2 of House of the Dragon, episode Smallfolk, was recently released. As there weren't as many new costumes in this episode, in this video I'll be counting down the top 5 most compelling costumes, highlighting any callbacks to Season 1 and Game of Thrones. Today's sponsor is Gentleman's Galactic Legends Collection. More on that later in the video. For this video and the season at large, I'm seeking costumes that not only stand out visually, but also contribute to the storytelling and narrative. Warning, there will be spoilers for all of Season 1 and episodes 1 through 6 of Season 2. But I won't touch on any fire and blood spoilers, so please refrain from leaving those in the comments below. Thank you. Now, before we get to the countdown, there are a few things I want to comment on. In a rare move, Rhaenyra wore only one outfit throughout the entire episode, the one I featured in my last video. This time, I could see more detail in her costume, and the embellishment on her shoulders seems to be a chain of some kind, though it could also represent dragon flames or breath. I mention this because the silver metalwork on her belt features 2 dragons facing each other with swirling dragon breath. And my second observation is about Aemond. It's sometimes hard to tell the colors of the costumes in the show, possibly due to the lighting during the council scene and when Aemond is in Aegon's chamber. It appears the sleeves on his doublet are now black, whereas they were a mossy green in earlier episodes, symbolizing his shift to the dark side, as they say. Additionally, one of my viewers pointed out that Aemond changes his eye patch to match his mood, something I hadn't noticed before. Let me know in the comments what you think about Aemond's changing costume. Now let's get on with the countdown. Number 5, House Lefford Armor. We didn't get to spend much time with House Lefford or House Leford in this episode, one of the principal houses sworn to House Lannister of Casterly Rock, but I really love the armor worn by House Lefford of Golden Tooth. This armor is a variation of the tournament armor worn in Season 1. Now, while the armor featured in this episode is quite simple compared to the ostentatious armor of the Lannisters, it's actually practical and functional. The cavalrymen wear shirts of mail with blue and gold velvet surcoats over top, the colors taken from the Lefford coat of arms. The armor includes wrist cuffs, an overcloak matching the surcoat, and a leather and mail gorget in a V shape that echoes the inverted pile or wedge shape from their house sigil. I believe the man wearing plate armor over his surcoat is Lord Humphrey, the Lord of Golden Tooth. While relatively simple, their armor has its flourishes. Humphrey's breastplate and helms, for instance, feature decorative bands, and their cloaks are trimmed with matching braid and are finished off with a sun brooch. For some historical context, here's an example of a late 15th century open-faced sallet with an applied gilt copper alloy border from the royal armories, similar to the helmets worn by House Leford. Number 4, Myra Gown. Myra has a new gown this week that perfectly suits her role as Master of Whisperers and confidant to Rhaenyra. While this dress is simpler and less voluminous than the one she wore a few episodes ago, it still looks beautiful on her. Her previous outfit had a Japanese-inspired vibe, similar to many of the Valyrian costumes we've seen on the Dragon Keepers, and in Damon and Rhaenyra's wedding ensembles, which also feature kimono-like elements. This week's look, however, is more relaxed and reminiscent of loungewear, though it retains the long, hanging sleeves typical of medieval fashion. Comparing Myra's attire from last season, you can see her style evolving to align more closely with Rhaenyra's costume. Interestingly, they have opposite color palettes. Rhaenyra often wears charcoal gray with silver metallic accents on her collar and belt, while Myra's palette is a soft silvery gray with accents of charcoal gray. Additionally, the shape of Myra's belt, while a little more narrow, is close to Rhaenyra's. Number 3, Damon Black Gambbeson. The majority of Damon's outfits in Season 1 and 2 have been made from brocade and leather, so it's a bit of a nice change to see him dressed in this Gambbeson. If I haven't mentioned this to you before, a Gambbeson is a padded defensive jacket, often quilted, worn as armor or under armor for additional protection. When worn as a standalone protective garment, it is made from a very durable fabric like buffalo or ox hide, more correctly named a buff coat, or from layers and layers of linen, which are quite durable against weapons. Oftentimes, however, a Gambbeson is also the foundation garment worn under armor, and it is also the de facto men's costume worn in almost all fantasy shows. Damon's Gambbeson, like most of the ones we've seen in House of the Dragon, has detachable sleeves that are laced to the main torso portion of the Gambbeson with laced-through metal grommets. However, to give ease of movement, the lacing is only at the shoulders. From my observation on the show, this is for a few reasons. One, set-in sleeves were not a thing back in the medieval era, so some modern techniques or anachronisms are employed while creating the costumes. Hello, metal grommets! It feels more period correct. Secondly, the sleeves can be removed at times when it's necessary to have your sleeves rolled up. So we saw this with Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones when he was skinning a deer. And thirdly, it creates a bit of a capsule wardrobe where sleeves can be swapped out. We saw quite a bit of that with Tyrion Lannister with his many changes in sleeves and doublets and jerkins. Now, as to Damon's costume here, it has some really nice texture with the use of two contrasting fabrics and top stitching to create a quilted effect. And if you check out the back, the seaming of the jacket is pretty cool. Finally, the red is now completely gone from his costume, which in my opinion means he is no longer aligned with Rhaenyra. I pointed this out in the premiere episode that there was a bit of red behind the weighty fasteners on his jacket, which have now been replaced with black. I'm excited to present today's sponsor, Gentlebands Galactic Collection. Since 2017, Gentlebands has used unique materials to create rings that reflect your individuality. Perfect for weddings and great as gifts for friends, partners, or family members, their rings are not exclusive to men. Women can enjoy them too. Now, I ordered the Crimson Phantom ring along with a chain to complete the set. The Crimson Phantom ring is crafted from tungsten and features fragments of meteorite and dinosaur bone, making it a meaningful gift for my husband. Both of us are avid fans of history and fantasy, so this ring holds a special significance. Now, what convinced me to add a chain is their understanding that wearing rings isn't always convenient in certain situations. So as a solution, they've developed chains as an alternative. I find this idea absolutely brilliant. It's practical and stylish too. Now, my husband can wear the ring around his neck when he doesn't want to wear it on his hand, keeping this precious gift with him at all times without the worry of it getting lost or damaged. Gentlebands has generously offered a 25% discount on the purchase of their rings when they use the code COSTUMECO. Follow the link in the description and don't miss their free engraving service. Additionally, Gentlebands will give away one free ring from the Galactic Collection to a lucky viewer. Please join me on my House of the Dragon season finale livestream roundup on Thursday, August 8th at 8 p.m. EST for the draw. The link is in the description below. Now back to the countdown. Number 2, Allison Emerald Green Dupion Gown. Aside from this look, we didn't get any new gowns this episode, as Allison's other gowns, while lovely, are repeats from previous episodes. Now, this intense emerald green gown was teased in the trailers, and the still image was released long before Season 2 premiered. The style of the dress is quite simple, with a center front seam and long hanging sleeves lined in gold with matching fitted inner sleeves. While many of her Season 2 gowns are hand-embroidered, this look has some simple flat metallic gold braid trim on the round, open collar and on the sleeves, but if you zoom in closer, you will see some random gemstones. Now, what I think makes this dress is the weighty, large swirl embroidered Dupion fabric from Top Fabric of Soho in London. They are the same store that provided the fabric for young Allison's green gown in Season 1. And surprisingly, this fabric is polyester, but I don't think it looks like it. One of my viewers pointed out that the swirl pattern on the fabric is actually fiddlehead fronds. Allison finishes off the look with a gold chain belt or girdle made up of what looks like Faith of the Seven segments and a gold Faith of the Seven pendant necklace, perhaps to show her piety on the outside she has worn all season. But the final addition to this look, along with her tiara and veil, is the fish slop that gets tossed at her during her narrow escape with Helena during the riot in King's Landing. Now, before we get to the number one most compelling costume of the episode, here are a few honorable mentions. Alice Rivers' Falconry Ensemble. Okay, I'm not entirely sure if this is called falconry when it's an owl, so you can correct me in the comments if I got this wrong. I have this as an honorable mention because Alice is wearing the same dress she has worn all season, but she's added this leather hip-length vest worn fur side in. It looks like it's a mauve gray. The vest appears hand-sewn as the stitches are visible at the seams, and it's embroidered on the front with what looks like vines, perhaps a local plant of some kind. To complete the look, she wears elbow-length falconry gloves, a tooled leather belt, and a purse on her hip, which I refer to as medieval pockets. But if you zoom in close, you will see that the vest has actual pockets, perhaps for the actor to stash some personal items. Adam of Hall Shipwright Ensemble. What an episode Adam had! I've mentioned his marine blue shipwright outfit before, just a simple shirt, pants, boots, and a leather belt. But for the scene when Seasmoke claims his rider, Adam adds a cotton canvas or linen vest bound with leather, fastened at the front with brass buckles and leather straps. The belt is now worn over the vest, which features the Valarian crest of a seahorse. And now the most compelling costume in the episode. Number 1, Jason Lannister armor. Now this might be one of my favorite costumes all season. Like Allison's emerald green dress, this armor was teased in one of the trailers. The episode started humorously with a scene featuring Jason Lannister, Lord of Casterly Rock and head of House Lannister, the principal house of the Westerlands. He and his cavalry are positioned against House Lefford. Both Jason and his twin Tyland, the master of coin on Aegon's small council, are played by English actor Jefferson Hall. I think the wardrobe department did an excellent job differentiating between the two characters despite the scenes being tightly knit together. Now, while the uniforms still align with the red, black, and gold Lannister armor worn in Game of Thrones, those later armors had a Japanese aesthetic, whereas these armors appear more Greek or Roman-inspired. The entire Lannister armor dons the finest armor money can buy, but Jason takes it up a notch to just outdo everyone. So for instance, while the soldiers wear simple, dark red cuirasses, Jason wears a muscle cuirass, a type of armor from classical antiquity designed to mimic the idealized male physique. For context, here is an example of a Greek panoply with a helmet and muscle cuirass that dates between 340 to 330 BC. And then Jason's cuirass is embellished with gold swirls. One element similar to the Lannister armor worn by Lord Tywin, Sir Jaime, and King Joffrey is the gorget and pauldrons featuring the embossed lion. Game of Thrones costume designer Michelle Clapton took inspiration from the lion armor in the collection at the Royal Armories. However, the lion on Jason's enormous pauldrons, probably the biggest ones I've ever seen on the show, looks more like a direct copy. Not that I'm complaining because I love it. Jason Lannister's armor plates feature many gold bands and gilded details to show the contrast between the Great House and the Lesser House. His tool belt features golden lion mounts. The Gambbeson worn under Jason's armor appears to be created of leather provided by producers D'Alessio Galliano, the same company that supplied leather for Tywin and Cersei Lannister's costumes in Game of Thrones. And his helmet and those of his men appear in the style of Roman helmets, like this example of an iron infantry helm from the 2nd century AD. Jason's helmet has a crest of a lion on it. Now let me know in the comments what you thought of the costumes in episode 6 or the season so far. If you enjoyed this kind of content, consider subscribing to my channel, or if you'd like to support the channel on a regular basis, I've set up a Patreon with tiers that offer perks. You can find the link in my description. I'll have more House of the Dragon content coming your way over the next few weeks. Thank you so much for spending time with me. I'll see you in the next video.